Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV. Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations. I have a little ham radio story to tell you about the night that I passed my 40-word a minute qualifying run test. W1AW, the ARRL headquarters station, used to periodically, maybe they still do, transmit 40 words a minute as one of the speeds for their qualifying run tests that they hold periodically. Usually, I believe it runs from 10 to 35 words a minute, but occasionally they go to 40 words a minute. I remember reading in my ham radio history about a very famous high-speed CW operator, and I don't remember his name, and it's probably just as well. But the story goes that he used to be able to copy, and I mean he took a typewriter and he could copy, literally, in excess of 70 words a minute, CW. And a story was told about him drinking a glass of gin and then sitting down and pounding away flawlessly the results of 70 word a minute CW transmissions with what they called a mill, which was basically a typewriter, a mechanical typewriter that typed all capital letters and was specifically, I guess, designed for copying CW. Well, I didn't have a mill, but I did have a typewriter when I worked at W1AW. And I lived at a home with a couple of other hams. We called it the Home for Wayward Hams in Farmington, Connecticut. And this was right around 1977, maybe 1978. And one night, W1AW was transmitting a qualifying run with 40 words a minute included. And I was home. I was not working at W1AW that night. So I decided I was going to take a try at the 40 word a minute test and see if I could get my 40 word a minute certification for passing the qualifying run by copying on a typewriter at least one solid minute perfect copy at 40 words a minute. And I remember that story about the CW guy who drank a glass of gin and proceeded to copy. Apparently the guy was an alcoholic. Well, I was not yet an alcoholic at the time. In fact, I never drank. I just simply didn't do it. It wasn't in my repertoire of activities. I was totally sober, so I had not developed any tolerance at all to alcohol, but I poured myself a tumbler, an 8-ounce tumbler full of gin, and drank it down. Fire water. About 10, 15, 20 minutes prior to the 40 word a minute qualifying run test. And then I staggered down the basement stairs and sat down at the typewriter. And W1AW, of course, at that distance was very strong. There was nobody interfering with it. It was, as high as the S meter would go. So that was not a problem. But my state of mind was somewhat of a problem after 8 ounces of 100 proof. I was going to try and copy the 40 words a minute at the qualifying run. I was trying to be a reincarnation of this old CW whiz back from the 1930s or whenever it was. And so the qualifying run got to that speed and they started their transmission and I started pounding away on the typewriter with my brain pickled with all of that ethanol. And I pounded away and pounded away, and then turned in my paper the next day. And wouldn't you know it, I'd copied not one, but 2 solid minutes at 40 words a minute. Perfect copy. So I got my certification at 40 words a minute, inebriated to the gills. Now remember, I wasn't used to drinking at all, so 8 ounces of 100 proof was be about enough to put a guy into a coma, but not me. It was about enough to make me pass my 40 word a minute qualifying run. I should have taken that, or might have taken that as an early warning sign. The outer, very outer early warning sign that a hurricane was approaching the life of Stan Gibilisco W1GV way back in 1977. But it wasn't until about 1984, 85, that disease finally blossomed into full-blown alcoholism. And that's a completely different story for a completely different video and a completely different result, which was I am once again totally sober, have been now for almost 29 years. Well, let's see, 1978, it'd be about 29 and a half years now that I haven't touched a drop of this stuff, because it, in the end, caused one of the worst alcoholic episodes that doctors had ever seen. I was told by more than one doctor that I was a dead man walking. That this, I had the worst alcohol case that they'd ever seen. This was, I believe, in 1984, 85. But in 1977, I was just a kid, 26, 27 years old. And I wanted to prove that I could copy 40 words a minute, straight or drunk. So I copied it drunk. Oh, brother. CW operators, if you're a CW operator, stay away from booze. That's all I can tell you. Stay away from booze. I don't know. Stay away from booze, period. It's no good for anybody. Least of all, aspiring CW hounds. Anyway, that's the way I got my 40 word a minute certification. I think it's probably still somewhere in this house today. I don't know where, though. I'm too sober to look for it. Stan Gibilisco signing off, saying 73, which of course means best regards and so long, which at any speed in CW my native fist means did-da-da-da-da.